Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this because today we are going to fundamentally shift the way you view human connection. If you've ever felt like your relationship was just, I don't know, missing a certain depth, even though you're doing absolutely everything right on paper, well, you are in the right place. We're unpacking the groundbreaking work of therapist Figs O'Sullivan to really understand what emotional intimacy actually is and how to build what he calls the sovereign yes. We are moving way past that superficial standard issue relationship advice, and we're getting right into the actual neurobiology of love. So ask yourself honestly, do you feel like you're running a highly successful business with a roommate you just happen to sleep next to? That hollow, flat feeling, it is incredibly common. The bills get paid, the kids get fed. Maybe you even have a weekly scheduled date night, right? But it feels more like a corporate board meeting. You check all the boxes, but underneath all of that, there's this profound sense of isolation. And I want to debunk a major myth for you right out of the gate. More talking, better scheduling, or, a brand new chore chart, none of that is going to fix this. You literally cannot logic your way back into connection. Why? Because the problem isn't your communication skills. The problem is a complete absence of genuine emotional intimacy. To really get why all that talking isn't enough, imagine for a second that you've never tasted a mango. We could sit here for hours analyzing its chemical composition, its texture, its geographical origin. We could read stacks of books about it, but no matter how much you analyze it, you still don't actually know what a mango tastes like. Tasting it is an actual felt physiological experience, and this is exactly where most couples experiencing a disconnect get stuck. They're stuck in endless mango analysis. They dissect their fights, they negotiate systems, and they mistake all that talking for actual closeness. But emotional intimacy, it isn't intellectual. You have to put down the clipboard and actually taste the mango, which brings us to our core definition. Emotional intimacy is not a mood, and it's certainly not a fancy candle at dinner. It is a physiological state. It happens in your nervous system, not your prefrontal cortex.
It's a very real neurobiological event that triggers when two people move from a state of self-protection into genuine connection. You literally feel it happening in your body. Your shoulders drop, your breathing slows down, and something right in the center of your chest just opens up. It is the thrilling, exhilarating experience of dropping below your performing self, being deeply, truly known by another person, and feeling entirely safe in that knowing. Now, people so often assume that if the physical side of a relationship is working, the emotional side must be totally fine. But physical intimacy is about bodies. And frankly, it can happen completely on autopilot while you are totally emotionally walled off. Emotional intimacy is about nervous systems, and it strictly requires those emotional walls to come crashing down. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why couples with amazing physical chemistry but weak emotional intimacy almost always hit a massive wall around year 5 to 7. The physical connection just becomes mechanical because a house with no emotional foundation simply cannot survive the first big storm. So why do we build these walls in the first place? Well, it starts on day one with someone we call the representative. This is the polished, performing, carefully curated version of yourself. The one who is endlessly patient and laughs at absolutely every single joke. Early on, the representative acts as a vital scout to test if this new person is actually safe. But here is the trap we all fall into. We never fire the PR agent. Couples try to build a decades-long relationship on top of two performances, and you just cannot build true intimacy with a PR agent. Eventually, the performance has to end and the real you has to actually show up. This leads us to a pretty terrifying necessity, summed up perfectly by this idea. You can only be truly loved for the part of you that trembles, the anxious part, the needy part, the part that is absolutely terrified of rejection. Most of us have spent decades building thick armor to hide this exact vulnerability because our nervous systems remember every single time we were rejected in the past. But that is the fundamental bargain of relationships. The exact same walls that protect you from pain, they absolutely guarantee you will never, ever experience true connection. And because we're so terrified of that raw vulnerability, what do? We retreat into logistics. But here is the golden rule, the ultimate protocol: connection first, problem solving later. When you feel disconnected from your partner, your core attachment bond is threatened. So, trying to negotiate who does the dishes while your nervous system is deeply dysregulated, it's literally like throwing gasoline on a fire. It never works. You must safely share your vulnerable feelings and anchor your nervous systems in safety first. Once you're emotionally connected again, I promise you that massive scheduling conflict you were just screaming about, it takes exactly 4 minutes to solve. So, why do those tiny logistical fights get so explosive? Welcome to the time machine. When you get triggered, say your partner just forgets to text you back, your nervous system doesn't stay in the present moment. Nope. It time travels all the way back to a childhood wound where you felt abandoned or unseen. You're reacting with decades of heavy protective armor. Understanding this changes literally everything. You aren't actually fighting about a text message. Your nervous system is reacting to an ancient, deep pain being activated right now in the present moment. But here is the incredible, profound magic of relationships. Because of that time travel, your partnership can actually become the place where that old wound finally heals. This is what's called the missing experience. When you expose that scared younger part of yourself and your partner actually meets it with comfort instead of defensiveness, it literally rewires your nervous system. It proves to your brain in real time that relationships aren't just a place where you get hurt, they are the place where you get held. This rewiring allows us to shift from a rigid I consciousness, where you're trapped in this isolated little bubble of I am right and you're entirely wrong, into we consciousness. Let's move to and see how this builds into something called empathy cubed. This is where you hold three compassions all at once: compassion for your feelings, compassion for your partner's feelings, and compassion for the tragic dynamic you're both currently caught up in. When you do this, those isolated suffering bubbles actually merge into a shared space of true companionship. You aren't removing the pain, but you're no longer sitting alone inside of it. Now, a huge misconception here is that achieving this means having zero boundaries, right? Just completely enmeshing your identity with your partner's. Absolutely not true. Think of it as a drawbridge. Permanent walls keep everyone out and they just leave you chronically lonely. But a drawbridge, it's flexible. You can raise it up for necessary protection and you can lower it for deep, meaningful connection. This is the absolute hallmark of the sovereign US. It's about maintaining your absolute individuality while having the fluid capacity to let your partner all the way in. So, how do we actually go about building this? Well, it's not some quick weekend life hack. It's a lifelong practice. You have to learn to identify your actual feelings rather than just thoughts disguised as feelings. You have to risk being seen before you ever feel ready, because newsflash, you will never feel perfectly ready. And above all, you have to do the proof of work. Intimacy is not built on perfect harmony. It's built through repeated, sometimes grueling cycles of rupture and repair. You disconnect and then you bravely choose to turn back and reconnect over and over again. We have got to stop prioritizing the wrong things in our relationships. Society is totally obsessed with the spark, that early attraction that's based entirely on novelty, but sparks burn out in seconds. Emotional intimacy, that is the fire. Yes, a fire requires constant tending. It needs fuel. It takes patience. So the crucial point is, once that fire is burning, it provides a lasting warmth that a fleeting spark never, ever could. It is the fire of emotional intimacy that will actually sustain your relationship through all the inevitable cold seasons of life. You can read every article, listen to every expert, and analyze that mango until the end of time. But eventually, you have to taste it. You have to step out of the comfortable safety of your intellect and step right into the exhilarating, sometimes terrifying vulnerability of genuine connection. Your partner is waiting. The mango is waiting. So the only question left is, are you ready to stop performing, fire the PR agent, and lower your drawbridge? Because that choice and the profound connection that follows is entirely up to you. If you want to work on this for real, try Figlet, my AI relationship coaching app. You can start for free, no credit card needed, at figlet.empathy.com.